Today, I'm testing viral TikTok slime trends to see if they're really worth doing. Hit subscribe and let's get started. Okay, so this first one I have been seeing absolutely everywhere, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. I want you to see if you can figure it out while I'm making it. But we're going to need a chunk of this clear slime, not all of it, and then lots of clay. I found this multi-pack of clay on Amazon, and I'll link it below if you want to get some yourself, but it's basically just loads of individual packets of pre-dyed clay. And this is actually going to save me a ton of time, so I don't have to individually dye each one. This kit actually came with so many colors of clay, I couldn't use them all, so I decided to open it up and kind of just figure out which ones best went together. At first I was going to go with the pastel colors, but I ended up going with the darker shades just because I feel like they looked better on camera. And I'm almost trying to make a rainbow, so these are the colors that I chose. Now that I had all of the colors selected, it was time to actually start making the viral slime trend. And to do that, I need to individually unwrap each clay, roll it into a kind of log, and then split it into 4. I wasn't sure if I should be splitting these by 4 because I'm going to roll these into little balls and I didn't want them to be too small, but they actually came out perfect. I then repeated this with literally every color I chose. And I feel like if you've seen this trend before, you're probably starting to realize what it is. I actually thought this was going to take me hours, but because the clay was pre-dyed, it really wasn't that long of a process. And putting them all together in a row like this was so satisfying. I finished off with the purple and the pink, and then I was ready to start assembling them, but that's when I kind of realized it wasn't going to work. I can't believe I didn't think this through already, but I need 3 layers of 9 balls in squares, so using 4 balls in a row would give me a rectangle, and I also realized I didn't have enough colors on the last square, so I found 2 more shades of purple that looked like they'd go with it, and then just assembled those all together. These colors looked stunning, and once they were done, I had these 3 perfect squares that I was now going to attempt to form a cube with by layering them all on top of each other. I know that you guys in the comments are going to tell me that this isn't necessarily a rainbow and some of them are in the wrong order, and it's true, I definitely could have thought the color scheme out better, but either way, I was still really impressed with how these turned out. And although the colors might not be in the perfect order, it's still giving rainbow vibes. Okay, so now this part is done, we need to move on to the actual slime part of this. I said earlier we needed a chunk of it, and we just need to lay this over the top of the clay balls and wait for it to melt all over the slime. At first, I really didn't think this was going to work, but I trusted my gut and I just left it, and you can see how satisfying this was in the sped up footage. This to me kind of looked like balloons all stuck together, and it was so gorgeous, I kind of just want to make another one of these as like an ornament. But the whole point of this is to mix it together and make a really satisfying video, so as much as I really don't want to mix it together and leave it like this forever, I'm gonna mix it. And when I say that this was one of the most satisfying clay mix-ins I think I've ever done, I really am not exaggerating. I feel like because the clear slime was quite thick and had been sat there for a while, it was almost like a skin on top of the slime, and it kind of felt like a jelly layer. I don't know how to explain it other than it was just really satisfying. Mixing the colors together also looked beautiful, although I knew that it wouldn't look as beautiful once it all mixed. But it is kind of what you have to expect with these trends, is that they look great on camera for a second, and then that's kind of it. Although the slime texture at the end of this was very nice, it was just a very clay heavy butter slime, but I like that texture a lot, so I really don't mind. The final color definitely wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be, and it was kind of like a light purple plum color. I'll definitely be doing this trend again, and I'm excited to try different colors, and I might even just make a cube to keep. Okay, so luckily I made a lot of clear slime because the next one requires it, and we're going to be making a slime palette. This container is pretty old, and I actually got it with some glitter in, but I didn't want to throw it out because I knew that it would make a really cute slime palette. Once each slot was filled, I then went around with a drop of dye in each one. You're probably wondering why I'm not dyeing each slime individually or separately, and mainly just because this is going to be a lot tidier, but I also feel like that's kind of the whole point of making slime in a palette, to see all the colors together. Now I'm going to be letting this sit for a few days, so I don't really have to mix in the dye too much. The slime will kind of just absorb it, but I just wanted to give everything a little nudge with this little spatula, kind of to almost speed up the process a little bit, even though I'm going to be leaving it. This already looked cute, but I was not expecting how good it would look after it had sat, and the colors together in this palette honestly just looked gorgeous. As you guys can tell, I like the rainbow theme of this video, but I'd also love to try other colors in this slime palette. I feel like a gradual ombre of a color around the ring would look really cool too. I unclipped all of the lids and then actually took the whole lid off because I'm pretty sure it's broken, and was honestly just admiring how good this looked. They kind of look like little individual portions of jelly. In fact, maybe I should try doing that. Now I've been looking at this for a while, so it was finally time to start playing with it, and I just poked each one individually. Now maybe my fingers are just too big or the palette's too small, but I kind of didn't find this that satisfying. I definitely prefer playing with bigger pieces of slime rather than little bits, but it definitely looked really pretty, there's no doubt about that. Once I'd played with each color, I was kind of like, okay, well, what now? So I decided I needed to spice this up and do something else. else. I decided to get a block of Daiso clay and just unbox it, and I feel like Daiso clay just makes anything more interesting. I found this waffle mold, which I've used so many times before, and I just pressed the white clay into it to get this perfectly crisp white waffle. I feel like you might already know where I'm going with this, and I'm just going to take each color and lay it onto the waffle to kind of make a rainbow waffle. I was so close to getting these in the right order, but I put the green after the blue, and I was so annoyed, but I mean, I feel like it still looks cute. I mixed this together, and let's just say it wasn't as satisfying as the one with the balls, but it was still really satisfying to mix in. I also feel like the texture of the Daiso clay was a lot nicer than the other clay that I was using, and I was also really surprised that this didn't really have much of a color to it after mixing in all of those colors together. Okay, so this next one didn't really go to plan, but I thought I'd include it anyway. I was trying to make one of the super satisfying crunchy kind of fish egg slimes I've been seeing everywhere. Firstly, I'm pretty sure they sent me the wrong beads, and secondly, the bags that I ordered looked huge online, but were tiny. The beads looked okay, but I was going to try this anyway with just less slime and make a smaller one. Now, the beads seemed to mix into it pretty well. They did fall out to start with a little bit, but as I mixed them into the slime, they all kind of blended together and went in quite nicely. It was definitely a crunchy slime, I guess, but it wasn't really what I was expecting or what I was wanting it to be, and it just didn't look as satisfying as other videos I've seen on TikTok or elsewhere. So I decided I needed to do something to fix this that would just change this up a little bit and make it more crunchy. The only problem is I didn't have any more of these beads, but I did have a giant bag of pearls, so I just added those. I decided to add about half the bag to start with just because I didn't want it to be too crunchy where the beads were falling out. I mixed this in and it was definitely getting crunchier and crunchier, but I soon realized that I needed to add more beads, so I just added the rest of the bag. I thought I might have gone a little bit overboard at this point because the beads weren't really mixing in at first, but I did just keep mixing and eventually they kind of went in and formed quite possibly the crunchiest bead slime I've ever played with. Like, you really cannot tell me that that is not so satisfying. This was a kind of plain looking slime, but I actually really liked it. I feel like the rainbow beads and the pearls surprisingly went together pretty well. And I'm definitely going to be keeping this one on my desk to play with. Now, at the start of this video, I didn't do the maths properly and I was left with some excess clay balls, so I thought I'm not going to waste them and I'm going to include them in this video as another viral slime trend, clay cracking. I have done a video on this which I'll link above now, but it's basically where you pour glaze over clay and let it sit, and the glaze dries up and you can pop it really satisfyingly. I poured a ton of glaze over this because I wanted these to be super crunchy. Some people do multiple layers at once, and honestly I probably should do that, but I just went a little overboard and poured it all over and then went in with my paintbrush. What's really important here is that you get every single part of the clay covered, because the more covered the clay is, the more it's going to crack. It's really worth taking your time with this and covering up every single part, and even around the edges and the base of it too. Once this was done, they looked really, really pretty and kind of similar to the first slime that we made, but these are going to be crunchy instead of jelly-like. Once I felt like they were covered, I transferred them to a fresh lid, where I then let them sit in the sun for around 3 to 4 hours. What's interesting about this is that they kind of look like they had expanded a little bit and already started to crack, so I'm glad I caught them when I did. There is something so satisfying about cracking clay, and I think this might be my favorite viral trend. Well, I had so much fun testing out these viral slime trends. I'd honestly say all of them were super satisfying in some way or another. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future, hit subscribe. I decided to leave some ASMR clips at the end of the video, so enjoy these and I'll see you in the next one.